Everywhere we walk upon in this world, one indigenous group or another has once lived there before for thousands and thousands of years. One of the most intricate and respectful ways to inhabit that place. We need to remember that. You're on indigenous land, original clans. Since beginning of man, countless years out on this land. Living so grand, alarm to commands, intrinsic alarm. Never disband, 60,000 plus. Following law before this sight of hand. Through the seasons and sacred plants. Endure storms for many lost fence. From the desert down to the clay pan. Tropics and mountaintops, swamps and oceans. Think of our beaches, no equivalent. Swept with the tide, deeply advanced. Warriors post.
Hey, what's up, everybody out there, internet world? Welcome to another episode of Powercast. I am your host, the Golden Mike from the North. Go by the name Kid Blaze, aka Pat James, Mao Power, and I want to welcome everybody tuning in from wherever you are around the world. Yes, it is. It is episode number 8, and before I start, I would like to show respect and acknowledgement to the traditional custodians of this land, which I am streaming from, the Gimwe country, the greater region of Cairns. And I would like to extend an acknowledgement to the traditional custodians tuning in from your respected areas, for your traditional custodians from your respected areas, wherever you may be tuning in from around the world. So, episode 8, it has been a big last few weeks, man. We had the major launch of Powercast, so we are officially stamped out there into the world. We had the official live stream at Bulumbaja here in Cairns, which I will talk a bit about. I want to say shout out to everybody who's been supportive and jumping on the patron community. But now, what I would like to do is introduce my guest for the show this evening. My brother, all the way from the Torres Straits, who is someone we came from the foundations called Homeboyz, which we will talk about tonight. This brother here is a business owner, a Torres Strait African, Torres Strait cultural advocate, a man from the region, and he's a brother that grew up in the what we like to call Homeboyz, the foundations of where Mao Power was birthed. So introducing to the black table or here on Powercast, my brother KC, Kaio, Levi, and we're gonna bring him on if he is here. Hey, brother, what's happening?
What's going on, brother? Same old,
like
same old.
All right,
Oh,
my brother.
man.
I don't know. It must be a Friday night. There's been a bit of a lag with that the imagery, but now I think everything's back up. I mean, internet, Telstra. What am I doing paying Telstra if we're this slow with connection?
Yes, true, boss. True.
Wow.
True that, man.
But My brother, I've introduced you here, like my brother, we grew up together, but I want to
Mm.
actually, if you can do a proper way, as we align our cultural connection and where we situate from in the world, could you give us your background, bro?
My background. So mom's from Mower Island, in part of the Central Island group up in the Torres Straits. And my dad is German, full-blooded German. Um, I grew up majority of my younger childhood on the islands, on Horn Island. Went to school on primary school and high school. Start of high school on TI before we had to move down to Cairns here because Mum was getting a bit crook there and sick for health reasons. We had to come down a bit. That's pretty much where I'm from.
Yep.
And been around the bends, but yeah, always come back to Cairns and I'm trying to get up back home as much as I can. Not just for weddings and sorry business, just try to make a bit more of an effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always good to be connected back up to your homelands, and it's
That's
always
right,
like,
bro.
When you travel back up there, something happens, you get sent
That's
to
right.
reinvigorate. Yeah.
That's right.
So the interesting things that I wanted to why I invited you on this program. One, we wanted to talk about as a business owner, how because you've just recently sold a part of your business, and during this time of COVID, I wanted to take that story and that journey because people in our communities know us as like this the ballers,
Wow.
but nobody
Wow.
knows about the things that we do, and we've contributed back to community.
Mm.
The second thing was talking about our foundation, Homeboyz. This is a very special conversation because that's our foundation, all the way back up to Narupai, Horn Island. That area. And if we extended it, include Muralag, which is Prince of Wales. We can
Wow.
talk about that. So anybody who's tuning in from the Homeboyz, hope you guys are tuning in. Please ask questions, Jan, but no mocking. But
Please, no more.
and the third one was because I launched on Patreon. You were one of the first people to support and jump on, brother. And I was
Yeah,
able
bro.
to get you
Always.
have that. Thank you, my brother, and just have that
Always.
conversation around your experiences with it. And
Mm.
we can extend the yarn to see where the new future is going, especially with utilizing technology in this new environment.
Wow.
So let's start out with the businesses, brother. I mean, give us that journey. How did you fall into that world?
Man, well, being when I first moved down here and I finished school. I finished my senior schooling, and at the time, I wanted to, especially during grade 11, grade 12, I wanted, I had big plans, especially when coming from the island into the big smoke, and I had to look after mum, but at the same time, I had to think of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be, So I can remember my grade 10 year back in TI. We had our work experience. We come down to
I remember that.
Yeah, we come down for the trip. We stayed at the caravan park on Peachtree. But it was much better then than it is now. But we stayed there, and I went to with Uncle Tony Yudeldum. He was in a liaison officer for the Cairns Police here, so I did my work experience with them. And after that point, when I went back, I wanted to. That's what I wanted to be, man. I wanted to. I pretty much wanted to become a police liaison officer, and then go, and then go wherever it took me from there to help people. But my main thing was just helping people. When I look back at it now, it was helping people,
Yeah.
And then when I moved down here with Mum, a year later, I did my senior year. I spent some time with Laurie Nona. That he was a PLO as well. And me and Joey, we lived with him for a bit there. Joey went to TAFE, did Laifu. Joey Light.
Yes.
Yeah,
Joey there.
yeah, Bala Joey. So we lived with him for a bit there, and I went to Trinity Bay School there, and he went to TAFE there. So we'd head off, hang out a bit. But that was where it started for me. And growing up in the environment, in Cairns here, you can be easily distracted, and after leaving school, I studied diploma in justice, and then due to having my first son, I ended up because I had to stay home and I had an injury. I had my first big injury, my ACL, so I couldn't really continue on pursuing the studies. And when I was at home, I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I'm a stay-home dad, can't do anything, got an injury, a big injury, and after this, even it took a while to get the surgery done, and then I got the surgery done, and then I had complications with that surgery. It got affected and all this other stuff, but I had a lot of time to think, and I thought, like, I kind of lost that drive to go back and do the studies, and so I started thinking of like where we are and what do we need in Cairns? What do we need in regards to what can I do for myself to help people and start a business? And it all started during that time. I was a stay-home dad. I stopped studying and spent a lot of time at home with my son and stuff like that. So from that period on, I kind of ventured around. I ventured from job to job after I got better, and I got sidetracked, did other things, and until one day I was actually working doing youth and disability, which I complete. Yeah, so I did go back like many years later. I went back and studied, and while I was working for a company called Gen X back in the day as a youth worker, and I was juggling jobs. While doing youth work, I was doing hospitality and I was doing building, and man, I did everything, everything you can think of, in all the industries. I was touching base, having a feel for it, and I'm thinking, because still in the back of my mind, I was like, from my background, coming from the island, you literally had nothing, man,
Yes.
Like for us, we made our Homeboyz, we made a basketball hoop on the dirt out of timber that was laying around, and a bloody bicycle, a motorbike rim, so we had nothing. And
oh man.
And man, yeah. And so after doing different jobs around town, I really wanted to do something for myself and build something that had potential to grow and eventually turn it into a franchise, so to speak. And then because I had my son and that growing up, and I wanted him to be able to have an easy life,
yes,
and carry on that that mentality of and keeping the business running and stuff like that. So that's where it all started, really. And the main thing is like I always wanted to run a business, but it was just, what did I want to do? What did I want to do? And so when I think I was doing about youth and disability work in my 9th year after completing a diploma in child protection and family intervention. I was in my 9th year, and I was really feeling it. You can pretty much get burnt out really quick in that industry. And one day, one of my friends, one of my mates, Jeffrey, he rang me up and he started asking me some questions. I can't remember if it was for a survey or whatever. And so I started answering the questions. And one of the questions was, if you were to start a business in Cairns, what would it be? So I kind of took a a minute or so to have a think about it, and I thought, well, what's the type, what's in need here in Cairns? What's the type of? So I thought, oh yeah, we got barber shops, we got garden maintenance, we got phones was growing and booming at the time, and
Yes.
And coffee, started booming and growing at the time, and and then I kind of thought like, any one of those businesses. That was my answer to him, and then about a year later, I remember contacting him. I said, "How did you go with your survey and all that stuff you asked me that year ago?" And I said, since that day, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I remember we needed some stuff removed, and I had to from our house, and I tried Googling. I'm like, hey, I need someone to remove this rubbish,
Yes.
and I couldn't find anyone. And I found one person in Cairns. I found one person, and I rang him up, and they were like 2 weeks booked, and I'm like, man, that light bulb clicked on, Okay, well, you need to get into the removals business. So anyway, fast forwarding, I started a business, actually with Jeffrey. We started a removals business together. And so we, he helped me with the website and everything else. And it went good, and I had big plans, I had plans to grow it, turn it into a franchise and let it run itself,
Yes.
And see where it went, but being in the big smoke, so to speak, you sometimes you just have to, you just have to find what you want to do and make decisions out of your environment and what's going on and what's in need, and and hard work will bit of effort and hard work will get you there.
Sorry, brother, keep going.
So so I ended up running the business, and had it for 8 years, and unfortunately, due to some health stuff that come about, I had to renegotiate what I want to do and where I want to go, and whether if I want to keep carrying heavy stuff around,
Yes.
which physically, you mentally, you might have mental strain, but if you physically can't do it anymore, you just can't, man, and you can't depend on anyone else, you just got to do it for yourself. And if things happen, you just have to, take it in and move on, and chase. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's the part of the point of being in a business is being able to adapt, and nothing runs completely fully to track. I mean, it'll go to the direction, and depending on the situation in the environment, you have to make decisions based on that.
That's right.
And I think you had a pretty good out where you sold that business, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it was all still positive, and I think that journey being in business for 8 years, I think a lot of businesses don't, it's a ridiculous amount, up to 80% of businesses don't last more than 4 years. So to be running up to almost a decade, that means to show that the commitment and focus. And it was interesting because when we were yarning about this, we were talking about the mindsets, and I want to take a moment first to say a shout out to Jeff. He and Local Visibility designed the Mile Power website. And I know that Jeffrey, and I met him way back as well when we was they were doing stuff with Facebook advertising in that world. So a mutual connection there. The brother's always been good to have a young to, especially about in that space. But with the business now, so I want to take it back to the beginning, and like I said, almost a decade. That means you've been you have to have been very committed, because in my experience, the first 3 years of it, that's the make and break period. Yeah. And so, what were some of the pain points and things that you experienced?
Pain points. Oh man, there were a few. There were a few along the way. Um, just from what I found was um, after owning a business and being in that industry, you're providing a service. You're providing a service to the community. Because I thought of that because I needed that service, and that was the trigger point for me. I needed that service. It wasn't available, and I'm like, we're a big community, man, and it was in need. So that's why I took the opportunity, and and we started, paid for everything out of our own pockets, So that was the starting point, and I, there were a lot of, I'm going to call them barriers that were up because of, policies and the government and council, and every year the fees would go up, disposal fees would go up, and private dumps, they charge an arm and a leg, we found ways around it, but a lot of that happened, and it's just the way it is, man. It's it's just part of the journey, part of learning, and just compromising and find a way around it, and keep pushing forward as much as you can. But yeah, for me, the struggle was because one of my key struggles was finding good workers. And another thing was finding brothers, balas. I try to help a lot of my brothers out there in the community, need a job, when they reach out, I'm like, yeah, bala, I'll come pick you up, or, and usually it's sad, but my first question is usually, which way, bala, you got a manual license? And we all know the it's like, you don't get that out of a cornflakes box, brother. You need to go and get that. So as much as I try to help, and I'm not gonna just put the blame on the ballers, it was just no one really wanted to work hard, If I could, out of all the workers that did jobs for me and work, for me, I'd probably have, I could pick out, the ones that were genuinely wanting to work and that were hard workers on one hand. I can count them with one hand, and I went through many. I went through many workers. Not only ballers, just I put out, looking for a driver and whatever, to carry stuff, or and it's not hard work, but hard work sometimes is hard to come by, man. Especially well, for me, that's what I experienced, and out of my heart, I try to help them, help them along, and give them a job, but also, try to pull them in the right track, and let them know that, and the ones that worked hard, man, I'd let them know, I'd let them know. I'd in a way, I'd reward them, and give them a little bit extra. But that was one of the things, is finding hard workers that that could really work hard. That was one struggle. Then the other struggle was just dealing with a lot of the council, and dealing with the policies, and and public liability insurance, and all this stuff, man. And man, it's unfortunately, I wasn't aware that it would be that complicated or that hard, man. But man, it was an eye opener for me, which was good. Because now it gives me a different perspective of what it takes, to start something from the ground up, for building from the ground up. And sorry, I forgot to mention before I forget, I recently sold the business, But the good thing is that I sold it to one of my mates who's he's a hard worker, and he's a PNG mate, and he moved down to Byron Bay, and he moved away, and then he ended up he keeps coming back to visit family and friends and catch up with us. And I remember him ringing me one day and say, "Bro, like I want to start a business down here, and I want to bring your business down here. I want to keep it there in Cairns, get someone to run it, hire someone to run it, and I want to also bring it down here, and I can run it and do it down there because his family's down there." So he's got the same mentality and same motivation in regards to direction and where to take it. You know, he wants to grow it and ultimately develop it into a franchise, so to speak. So I'm just grateful. You know, it's made it so much easier for me. Because, you know, going from the doctor saying, "Man, you need to stop doing what you're doing," and I'm like, well, I can't, you know, the business can't run itself, man. You know, as much as you think when physically you can't go anymore, you just have to listen and you know, renegotiate where you want to go. And so I'm grateful that I sold it to my mate down, and he's taken it down Byron Bay. He took pretty much it. Yeah, he's took it, and he's got big plans for it, and he keeps me updated and everything. And yeah, so anyway, I'm glad.
There's a few things there. One, I'll go back to that when you talk about work ethics. I from personal experiences being in multiple industries, all the way from transport to tourism to entertainment and film production, and even working in the corporate and private sector and other businesses and organizations. It's a common thing, and that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges. I've had experiences with that learning as well. Not only getting workers, but I found out from my side as the vision holder, I was lacking in certain areas, especially like in communication. Now I got a pretty set team, and I know that it's about knowing that they can't see what's in my mind. I have to articulate it all the time and develop them into that role. And so I think getting people with open minds and work ethics is very key to the growth of a business. And I know this is one of the common conversations I have with other people who are either managers or CEOs or business owners. And the other thing, I tell you a story about you talking about car license, right? Bro, I do international travels, and artists are creatives, and sometimes I get artists who don't have no ID. I can't even book a flight. I'm like, how am I going to transport you from A to B? Like, I can't get you a ticket. You need some sort of
don't
ID.
even exist. You don't even exist in today's society. That's funny, man.
Those situations, like they're dealing with the policies. Like I do the same in with all the same thing, public liability insurance. The paperwork is like I believe it's like 60-70% of the whole damn thing. It's the physical things is easy. It's just the paperwork. But where was it going with this? Oh, that's right. Like dealing with those challenges, it forces us as entrepreneurs to be creative with our solutions. And I think I've learned more being creative like that. Like, when someone doesn't have a
man.
I want to touch on the work ethics. Now, I remember we shared this story last night. I'll touch on this because it kind of will segue into Homeboyz. I learned very, very young about the value of earning something. And there's three main crucible moments, I call it, in my life that I can speak about that has taught me something that I carry as value today. And this one happened when I was 7 years old. And I believe you share a similar story to this. So I got busted for shoplifting at the local store on Rhode Island when I was 7. Peer pressure. And my punishment was the owner made me work afternoons. And when I worked afternoons, they ultimately ended up paying me. And then I was able to buy my packet of chips. And something happened. I didn't know it then. but it instilled this ethic with me at a young age to see from the exchange of value of work, and then you can get what you want, and it kind of it triggers something, and it's a very clear memory. Like I remember the packet of twisties, chicken twisties that I took.
Oh man, they're good, bro. But especially back then, they were better then than they are now.
They're my favorite twisties. Everybody will know. That's the reason why. But I believe you have a similar story, brother.
Oh, bro, I won't go into full details. But man, I probably around the same age actually, and for me, it played a big part because it made me realize that that for every action there's a reaction or there's consequences, and for and there's actually a two aspects to it. Is one of it is coming from a cultural background is first things first, man. You listen to your parents and you respect them. And when they say something, you do, and you live by it. You live by it, and the person you become is because of that, because of things that they tell you. And in my case, it was something that was said to me every day, every week or whatever. It was on repeat. Mom used to say, hey, Mom used to say to me, hey. And not go steal anything or not do anything stupid because I'm in Baba Washiam Gopansu, and I used to think to myself like, yeah, whatever, Mom, like, and she would just hound me and and tell me all these other things every day. Anyway, one day I was like, you know what? One day I had an opportunity, and at a young age, I had opportunity, and I took the opportunity, and that was as a youth. Sometimes you just want to see what it's like. It's like I watched the movies, all them, them cops and robbers and all them, and I was like, and then they, in a sense, they looked cool, because they're always. And it was just out of curiosity. I was like, yeah, okay. Opportunity came. I took the opportunity. And then on my way home, I'm running. I don't know why I was running. Like, I didn't need to run, man. It's not like the cops were chasing me or anything. But everything going through my head, and I'm running, and it's getting dark, running. And I come through this, because back on Horn Island, we got all these shortcuts,
Yeah.
And I remember I took this shortcut. It's coming on dark, and I remember when I was running, I seen the light at the end of the tunnel, which is the end where the bushes open up with a shortcut. You come out of that shortcut, and I remember running, and I seen that it was like tunnel vision, and while I'm running, everything's going through my head, and my mom's voice is playing in my head. My mom's voice playing in my head. Anyway, by the time I got to the opening, man, I tripped on a root and on the ground, and I just went face first, man. Oh, man, that was it. I could just hear my mom screaming in my ear, telling me, see, I told you, you do something bad, you're gonna have consequences, and that I can remember every bit of it right now. I can remember it, But if you were to ask me what my missus cooked for me last week or the week before that on a Tuesday night, I probably couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But as a youth, stuff like that sticks with you, stuff like that, and especially going back to having that, you gotta have that respect to your parents, and the elders and that, because when they hound you every day, they hound you every second.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do it for fun.
Yeah,
they live their life. They have that experience, that knowledge, that purpose, and that purpose is to protect you.
yes.
And that's why they hound you. and and that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot, man. Because, like I said, otherwise, I could be a well-known criminal. I could be like probably in prison somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be where I am today for stuff like that happened at the at those moments back in the day when we were youth. Especially around that age. Especially around that age. Yeah. So it taught me a lot.
It does. It does when you think about those memories, and I think a couple of things. I remember growing up, there was this syndrome or the disease where the Aisabe syndrome. Where I know everything, and I think it comes with as you become into a teen, you kind of believe that you know more than what you do, but life experience, looking back on it, just everything from life experience of other people, I've learned more from that. And part of this, the reason we put this podcast out is because we get someone else's life experience, the journey, for our listeners to listen to it and say you could get value from this if you just are open-minded. Now, we talked about when we catch up there, we talk about that the foundations, and this is where I really want to go in because it's really the birthplace of everything. I think my mindset of how I think, and this is Homeboyz. Now, Homeboyz was how it is, and what most people don't know. If you're not from Horn Island or from the Torres Straits, Homeboyz was a community the youth made for themselves, and it started out with a few of the older brothers coming together in a dirt area near, across from Gateway Resort there near Akela Mills' house, and created a basketball playground out of just bits and pieces, just so the youth can hang out. But something else happened in there. Like, we created ownership into our own community, which I know Homeboyz still has a legacy up there now because every generation is the new Homeboyz generation and Homegirls as well. And what I learned in that space, I believe it introduced me to this culture called the D.I.Y culture, the do-it-yourself. I mean, we were no resources, like we had no facilities on Horn Island, nothing, but the brothers had the mindset enough to be able to come and say, let's build our own fun. Let's build our own playground. Let's build our own stuff. And that was very important because it was the birthing ground for Mau Power. Like, my first hit song was named Homeboyz. And I want to get your perspective and experience because we were there. Like, and it's not until you look back, you're like, oh man, how important that was.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it, going back to them days, we really made something out of nothing. You know what I mean? We had a basketball team, but it was more or less being in an environment and understanding that you can become something from nothing. You know what I mean? That's, for me, that speaks itself. And we weren't a gang. We weren't a gang, but anyone else would say, "Oh yeah, you were part of the Homeboyz gang." We weren't a gang, We were just a group of boys. We, and we still have that connection today. You see it everywhere. You see it on Facebook. You bump into whether Pickaninny or the boys or whatever. But I tell you this. It didn't only play a part in our lives, but it still holds a part in the community there on Horn Island. Because for my nephew, now in the last 2 years, he comes down from Horn Island. He comes down for holidays and he spends time down here. And every time he comes down, hey uncle, I listen, you probably was the original Homeboyz. Asked me the same questions. I was like, and I think to the first time I didn't really think anything of it. I just like, yep, that was us, this, nah, we didn't do that, but yes, we did that, stuff like that. But the second time when he came down, in a sense, I got a bit of he annoyed me because he wanted to know more and he was asking it. Genuinely interested to have a conversation about, and I was like, you asked me this last time, but he said, yeah, but I want to know, like, it's like, oh, this and that, and how did it start, how this and how that. And then after that conversation with him, it made me think and realize that, for us, we were living it then, and we obviously, everyone's moved on and stuff like that, but that foundation is still there. Absolutely. They're still carrying that legacy on, and they're still thinking, and for him, like, he's, 13, 14 years old, and, we're that's going back,
yes.
Going back a long time, almost 2 decades, almost 4 decades, almost 4 decades.
Almost
4 decades, yeah. So, and that's a long time, for something that we started to still be, carried on in the community and thing. Because at the end of the day, like, we know that for us and our culture, we want to belong to something. We want to belong to have an identity.
Yes.
Yes, we were Torres Strait Islanders, but within Torres Strait, we were part of a much closer and a better group, which was then called the Homeboyz, and each to our own. We all took away what we took away, but we all had different background, bloodline, all over the place and whatever. But we still, we still had fun, we still had laugh, we still, and for it to become what it is today, it speaks for itself. You know what I mean? And it's not like we went robbing banks and stuff like that, man.
No.
Because it was something good, and even the elders, they recognized that was part of that was part of.
Yes, that was the special thing about it. Like, the community supported it. Like, from elders of the community, they knew that we would be at one playground in the afternoon. They knew that we would move as a unit to go and play sports. They knew from the bigger brothers that if we needed something, everybody would just be willing to contribute. All the way from the grandparents right down to parents, to the older brothers. And it became this environment. Like I said, it was a tribe. It was a community. And from that day, I remember, like, just to create our own fun, we would make things like couple canoes, and then we would go up and recycle things from the dump. But then we also had, I remember the Bala Robert Solomon there, man. He became entrepreneurial and started fixing bikes and started to create his own micro business. And, we did fundraising, and it was community driven. And when I look back on it now, what I see is this is what I saw, that we had no resources, but we were resourceful. We were able to create that something out of that's that do it yourself mentality, the D.I.Y. Mentality. But fast forward, when I see and hear things about how people want to contribute to the youth by throwing these things called Band-Aid solutions, thinking that you could just throw money at building facilities, you're missing the point. It was ownership comes with the community. Like, when we were welcomed in as being a part of this idea, and then we contribute to that idea, it made a legacy. It still stamped a legacy. And right now, basketball teams still carry the name, even to touch football teams or football teams, and it'll always be a generational thing. And I think what can be learned from this is, when you start looking at how do you communicate and connect, closing the gap now with the youth, is inclusion. You have to have it's a collaborative conversation, and that's what was missing. Because I think the biggest thing was when we started it, it was like, okay, nobody's listening to us, nobody wants to give us something. We can build it ourselves.
Yeah, and you're right, because when you look at it, when you look at when you look at the boys and how things panned out, we weren't doing anything negative. Our parents didn't have to worry about too much about what we were doing. They all know where we were. They know that it was our movement. We did it for ourselves. We built it from nothing. you know, and we have that connection. And if you sit there and you think to yourself and you look at all the communities and especially up in far north Queensland, you look at all the communities and you look at the youth, and you look at what do they have in that community? What do they have? You know, what do they have for themselves? And if you're in a community, if you put yourself in a community environment and you have nothing, and you know, you don't start a movement for the right reasons, or you don't, you know, what do? They turn to crime, they turn to drugs, and unfortunately they even commit suicide. You know what I mean? Yeah. And suicide for our mob, especially the youth, it's at a high rate. You know, it's very high, because you know, that's why I feel for especially the remote communities, because what do they have there for themselves? You know, what do they have ownership of? You know, ownership is a big thing, because you started it from nothing and you grew from that ownership, and whether you know you use it a lot in your life now or whatever, but having a ownership of a movement that was beneficial for you now goes to show, you know, and communities need that, you know, community need that. We have that. It could be implemented around the country, you know, and because when you look at it from the outside in, that's a positive thing. That's a positive outcome. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And with our unfortunately, with our youth rate, you know, imprisonment for our youth at a high rate, suicide at a high rate, you know, and you got all these drug use, alcohol use, the list goes on, man. The list goes on. And unless things like this is spoken about, you know, that's why now when I have a conversation with my nephew, it's not like, oh, no, just leave it alone, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, okay, let's sit down and have a talk. Let's go and sit. Anything you want to know, I'll tell you. Let's have a yarn about it, you know? And sometimes, like even for myself, I'm still learning, but sometimes as a person that's been there, and like I said, you know, if I didn't learn of the things, if I didn't speak about the things that happened back then that I can clearly remember, that's put me where I am today. You know, if I didn't use them or think about them or have them happen, I wouldn't be here. I'd probably either be dead, prison, I don't know, whatever, you know? Sometimes you just have to look at that and because, you know, people's background paves the way for where they are today, you know? And a lot of people can vouch for that, you know? Especially for us, we were in that movement. We made something from nothing. And, you know, look at what it's doing now in the community, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, and it's a good thing. It's a positive thing, you know, and communities need things like that. Youth need things like that. And it needs to be spoken about. It needs to be spoken about, you know? So, I just wanted to touch base about having that ownership. That was very true.
Very true, yes, and I think a lot can be happening. I remember when I got to a position where I could start sponsoring teams, man. I was so excited. I'm like, I'm gonna sponsor this jersey. I'm gonna do this. I was like, this is my team. And it was like, but it did something special. Like, and now I know I will carry that with me for the rest of my life. And it's a part of the DNA of everything I do now. You know, you can't. There literally no more power without Homeboyz. That's what it is.
That's it.
And I think this led us to a deeper conversation, and this is one area that I'm very passionate about. But it's not one that can be easily had. It's about mindsets. But like having a different mindset. And we started on talking about the type of attitude you kind of need, a mindset that you need. Coming from an environment where it was very low in resources and opportunity, and then growing up, understanding that we have limitations and challenges, but if you don't have the right way of thinking,
Yeah.
or don't try to train that right way of thinking, it then becomes what keeps you down. And
Yeah.
we went into the journey of talking about, like, people who are super talented, but
Yeah.
because the attitude of the mind is not on the level of their talent, that
Yeah.
it only goes so far before it starts to
That's right.
burn out.
That's right.
Burn out. And wanted to
That's
get
right.
your perspective of that, because you shared your journey, especially with going through the period before you started, that you sold your business. There was
Yeah.
a lot of challenges, but the
Oh yeah.
mindset.
Yeah. 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 When I look at my life, like I had things, I had plans, I had big plans, and I wanted to find ways to get there. Unfortunately for me, I had my first big injury come, and I had to, uh, I had to gather myself, and not stay too far, be too far down. I need to pick myself up and renegotiate what I wanted to do. What else makes me happy? Because even back then, I was big on, if you do something you love as a job, you'll never work a day of your life, and
Yes.
I lived by that, you know what I mean? So then I had to say, well, what else makes me happy? I can't do that. I can't go do that anymore because, what else makes me happy? And people need to realize that um, the mind is so powerful. It's so powerful. Like, it's one of the most powerful thing in the world. Don't worry about anything else. Your mind determines how you're going to feel tomorrow, how you're going to feel in the next second, in the next hour, in the next, in the next 3 months. If if you don't set if you don't set a track to work on, you'll get lost. You get distracted. You're out there. Because people need to understand that. When you think about things, if you got nothing to do, you sit around, you think about things. The thought comes, then the feeling comes, and then that determines where you're going to go, whether in life or where you're going to go for that day or that hour. But people just need to, generally, people, especially for our youth, they need to understand that the mind is powerful. It's the most powerful
Yes.
thing out there. Firstly, they need to understand, because that's within themselves. Everyone's
Yes.
different. Everyone's, and generally everyone, I like to say everyone has a disability. Because I worked in the youth and disability sector for almost 11 years. I worked in that sector industry. For almost 11 years, working with clients from all walks of life, all
Yes.
background. Have working with them, and I even taught. I did classes with Uncle Jerry Calopi, where we would custom make a class for cultural awareness, so that people would, the wider community would understand our people if they were to support our people. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
we provided cultural awareness classes, 2-day classes for support workers. We did, man,
Yes.
probably about almost 190 support workers. We went through
Wow.
our classes. So there was so it going back to um, youth, to understand that, that for themselves, the mind is a powerful thing, and unless you have goals or
Yes.
something you want to do and thing, and then you got to figure out how what do you have to do to get there.
Yes.
Unfortunately, now, this day and age, and for me, after I did my diploma in family intervention and child protection, it made me realize that a lot of my clients were a product of their parents and their upbringing and their environment, because You know, they're born into that mentality. They're you know, at a young age, you know, you got to understand that, you know, from when you're born to in your teens, that's the pivotal point. That's where you're a sponge. You're practically a sponge. You absorb all these things in, you know. And if you grow up as a new youth, you know, we all know this. If you grow up in that environment, you absorb everything. And if you're, you know, if the family's broken or the situation's bad, or you know, it's always negative, and you know, your parents are, you know, telling you stories, and you know, talk about, you know, all the bad things that happened, and blame, and you know, and call names and all that stuff. You become that person. They feed you these information, and it determines where you go in life. And unless you break that cycle, you unfortunately for all our kids, you know, that's why. So like, again, I can't stress enough about suicide and drug use and alcohol use, and you know, and we, you know, again, about touching on, or you know, for our mob, we have a naturally, when you look at Australia as a country, as a nation, and you look at what's happened, you know, and you know, we you know, the land got invaded and got taken over, but all these bad things, apart from all the bad things that happened, we still survived. We still adapted, and we survived because it's in our gene. It's in our gene, you know. So we know that for a fact because we're here, you know. And so we it's in our gene to adapt, and you know, something happens, bang, you know, like, you know, stolen generation, you know, massacres all across the country, you know, and the biggest thing is we have to, for me, and I do it all the time, I'm still learning and I try my best. Every now and then on my Facebook, I share stuff about history because, for one, history isn't taught in our country in schools. It's you know, it's not. If you want to know the history, you have to go and learn it. You have to go and do your own research, you know. So that's why for me, I use my media platform to share that as an awareness. Say, I'm just going to leave that there, you know. If you're one of my friends, you know, you don't know this, I'm just going to leave that for you, you know, if you want to, you know, and things. So that's why I'm big on talking about stuff, and you know, not only talking about stuff that's happened, but also find and solve it, you know. In a sense, you got to solve it. So if there's something that's happened or something that's going on, find a way around it, you know. How can I you know, how can I go around this, or how can I work around it, and how can I do this, and how can I do that? But we, for one, it's very common about for our families, our parents, and that to be very wary about what they're feeding, what environment they're creating for their kids, because if it's negative, they're just creating a very bad future for their kids. That's the way I see it, because I've worked firsthand with kids that were traumatized. You know what I mean? And I'm no therapist. You know, I'm not professional, but I was there firsthand. I deal with that. You know, I deal with that stuff. I see it, and they talk about it openly. You know, and stuff like that. So, So first of all, our youth need to understand how powerful the mind is. Secondly, they need to start redirecting their thought patterns, and not just blaming the government like their parents did, blaming the police like, you know what, like what they see on the media, and blaming, you know, and then just you know, because if you take all this negative stuff on, it will weigh you down. You'll be like, well, I can't go be a police officer because they just want to lock us up, you know, or I can't go, I can't do this or do that because the government will just stop me from doing it. They
Yes.
can't. You can't, because at the end of the day, if you're here in Australia, if you want to do something, you just got to work hard to get there.
Yes.
And that's all it takes. And you just got to understand that everyone's different, and you, if you can find a way within yourself, mentally, then
Yep.
your physical actions will follow.
Absolutely.
You will get there. You just have to understand that hard work beats talent any day of the week. Ask
Absolutely.
anyone that. They will tell you hard work. You just have, people need to understand that hard work. Yes, there are barriers there and this and that, but man, compromise. Find a way. It can happen.
Yes.
You just have to train yourself. And it starts within. Everyone's different. It starts within. Our youth and our youth need to be told and spoken to about this. It needs to be. That's why I'm grateful that you got me on here, because this, they don't. No one has to attend. It's us sharing stuff.
Yes.
Whether they take one word away or they
Yes.
see and they take, they take one word or one sentence or one something that happened, and they say, oh yeah, I can do that, or why can't we do something like, build a movement in our community,
Yes.
And then that helps them redirect themselves within themselves. You know what I mean? Within their movement.
Absolutely.
Every individual is different, but they must have something to look forward to, and as the older generation, so to speak, and we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility.
Yes.
I have a responsibility for my nephews and my nieces.
Yes.
And I go out of my way, and they know. I go out of my way to try and help them in any way I can. Sometimes I do. I go that extra distance and try to tell them, I'm big on preventing things from happening, because I know what it's like firsthand. I said,
Yeah.
I'll tell you for the third time. Trust me, man. Don't
Yes.
don't go
Yeah.
down that track, or don't do this, or do this, and it will come. And sometimes just that reassurance, and the more it's spoken about within the community,
Yes.
they'll only grow from there. Our youth will only grow from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, but that's very deep, and this is why we started this platform, for this type.
That's
of
right, brother.
And
That's right.
like you and I, we catch up from time to time, and we always talk about these things. It's like, okay, like I just gotta say a shout out to SY. Thank you very much for commenting, and big love to you. The sister there, the Louisa Miskin is commenting, so thank you very much, and it's big love to us. Thank you guys, Homeboyz, definitely. Read a couple of comments. The Bala Kadal, how God, the preacher is sending some comments. So thank you for weighing in on conversations, and please ask questions on here as well. Give those who are commenting, please give your thoughts and perspective, because this is what it's about, stimulating conversation. Right. And this will live online for forever, and people can find it and it will find them. The greatest thing I really appreciated you touching on that environment of when a youth is born into an environment, how it impacts, because the first teachers are the parents, and anything that they do, it's taken as gospel truth, and you're taught never to question it, and those beliefs then go into the attitude and mindset, and then it causes the behaviors, and then the results come from that. And that was one great I think if you call it a flow chart, that we see that beliefs equals mindset equals behavior equals results. So if you want a better results, you have to question the belief and go to the core of it.
That's right.
And that's going back to the mindset. So I think more people having these type of conversations. We access technology so easily. Like this year, it costs nothing but time and energy to be able to have the conversations. The more of this, and going back to supporting what you're saying, is us being able to have the conversations to the youth. That's where it starts. Is
Yeah.
it perfect? Will it change overnight? No. But unless we're starting to inspire conversation,
Yeah.
um, nothing changes.
That's it.
It's
Nothing.
all,
Nothing.
it becomes the norm.
It actually gets worse.
It
It gets
does.
worse. It gets worse. You
And in
know.
a time
And
like, sorry, go on, bro.
yep. Keep going.
No, I said like in a time with COVID, man, and restrictions and lockdown, you're living with your thoughts,
That's
and
it.
that it's yeah, it can really go down dark
Oh,
places.
like we know wave patterns. We know firsthand because like you said, you know, what our parents, the environment our parents produce for us is we are the end product. And it determines where we go again.
Yes,
And unless change is made, you know, and I see it. It just gets bad. Our situation gets worse. If you look at statistics, if you look at things that are happening in the communities generally, not only just mentally but physically with their health, and all these diabetes and it's killing our people. And unless they, it's the stuff is spoken about openly. Um, it you know um, it won't change. It won't. And doing this is the man. When I heard about this, that's why when you tagged me, and I was like, man, this is good. This is something special. You know what I mean? This
yeah,
movement is gonna it's gonna do the work itself. And it's so easy. Someone wants to, nowadays, as we know with technology, man, it controls everyone and everything. Our kids, young age, have got phones, and the way things are going, this is a perfect platform for us, and to speak about it openly and share our thoughts and our experiences, because as we know, experience is raw. It's raw. It's
yes,
first-hand knowledge.
yes,
You can't question it. You're like,
yes,
you can ask why it happened, and you can learn from it. The smart
yes,
ones learn from it. They learn
yes,
from it and they find a way. But if you
yes,
if you can't, um, and yeah, it. That's why I'm grateful that you got me on here, and you're right. Every time we catch up, we have these conversations, man. Like
yes,
we laugh and blah blah blah, but it always comes back to that, and I think we share that because of where we were with our movement, Bala. Like honestly,
yes,
from coming from Homeboyz, I think
yes,
that's why we're here. That's why we're
yes,
doing what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
you're not only an artist, you genuinely like to help people. You know what I mean? And I like to help people. Genuinely like to help people because I see where things are going, and I have an opportunity to to try and make a change. Can't depend on the government. You can't depend on anyone else.
yes,
People, and people just need to realize that everyone's different, but again, you just have to um, um, speak openly, and things like this will make change. That's it.
that's
There
it.
is no, you know what I mean? And
Yes,
people, youth need to understand that. Yes, it takes a lot of hard work to 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 get to where you want to be, but you know, you if you're guided by the right mindset,
mhm,
you will get there. You know what I mean? Hard
yes,
work will pay off, and you may fail 5 times, 10 times, but you will get there. And
yes,
you know, and you have to expect failure. You almost
absolutely.
have to expect it. If you don't fail and you get there, oh man,
That's
that's
that's that's
awesome.
amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's
But
amazing. Yes,
you have to train yourself to expect it, because it's easy to lose motivation if you fail the first time, second time,
absolutely.
third time. You're like, blank. It's like getting a license. We spoke about that. You know,
Yeah.
some of my ballers been in there 6 times.
Yep.
Still got no license, and they give up. They give
Yes.
up. But you know, for that one bala, I said to him, bro, I'm gonna take you down there and I'm gonna drop you off, and you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Lunch break took him, drop him off there. 2 hours later, ring me one, almost crying on the phone and saying, "Wow, I got my phone. I got my license." I was like, bro,
that is amazing, and that's what you need. And I want to say thank you, Kadal, again for the comment. Yes, readers are leaders, and definitely promote book and reading to our youth and just to our community, and reading the right sources to be able to inspire the mind.
That's
And
right.
going back to your point of failures, like if we were to sit here and we can have a whole week conversation on about how much
please,
failures that we've experienced in our time, and I wouldn't be here without failures. I think there's the stigma around failures bad, and I'm like, no, they're learning experiences.
Yeah.
The
Take
art,
him, accept him, take him in, take him in.
The art is to be able to mitigate the risk and allow the failures to be minimal. And we use the analogy, which I wouldn't mind you sharing, brother, like because you were on your way to do the bodybuilding as well. Like that analogy you shared last night was beautiful, man. If you could share that of failures.
Yeah. So you know, naturally, you know, we live in a world where, you know, when you think for me, you know, when I was young, I remember Uncle Dick Peters.
Yes.
Another Kunzi that played a part in my life. That is why I did what I did. You know, and I remember when I used to go primary school up in from Horn Island. I used to go over, and I remember being on the ferry with him, and every time he looked me. I was like, hey, Kaio wants to sing an Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I used to think, you know, when I talk about skin, and then I remember one day I look, hey, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hey, I said, hey. Like I remember seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger for the first time, like, holy crap. I say, oh god, this Uncle Dick Peters. It's because he's losing his mind. Anyway, he used to do that. He used to do that, and I used to, and then anyway, I used to, after seeing that, I was like, man, that Kunzi Nishina. I used to look at that. And that kind of motivated me to, you know, because when I had my injury, my knee reconstruction, and had complications with that. I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to, you know, I had all this time on my hand, and what can I do? And then I was doing my rehabilitation, just start, you know, buying dumbbells and start getting a home gym. And it went from there, and then I ended up, you know, kept going with that, you know, even after my injury was thing, you know, I lost, I think, because I was in and out of hospital for about 6 months. The initial reconstruction had a infection, and just touching base on that, I remember the day before the surgery, I go in, I sit with the surgeon, and said, yeah, this is what's going to happen. And he said, at the end of it, he said, any questions? And I said to him, man, what's the worst thing that could happen out of this surgery? It's a big surgery. And he turned around and he said, well, you know, there could be a 1% chance that you get an infection, because that's, you know, that's the worst thing that could happen. And fair enough, I was part of that 1% chance.
Oh my
and
God.
I was like, man, like, whoo, bring it on, brother, bring it on. So over the next 5 years, fast tracking over the next 5 years, you know, like, I ended up becoming a big boy, and I gained a lot of weight, and in and out of hospital. And so I had the initial reconstruction, and then I had 4 washouts over the next 5 years. So 5 went under the knife 5 times, pretty much over a 5-year period. Man. And in the 6th year, I after, you know, finding a way to pull myself up and carry on and compromising it, you know, finding, all right, I'm in a bad situation. What am I going to do? What can I do? Hey, I wanted to do weights. I'm doing rehabilitation here. I'm going to start doing weights too. And I started doing weights, started, pretty much becoming a fitness fanatic, like I had the bad injury, but I found a way to be able to lose all that weight. I lost 32 kilos, lost 32 kilos. I was at my lightest, I was 98
Wow.
kilos. It's hard, it's a lot of, you gotta have mind game, you gotta be on your point, because it's not an easy thing to do. Ask any bodybuilder out there that's thinking it's not easy, and so that was one accomplishment that come away. But when you look at things like that, I use that as a template in regards to failure in life, and when you go to the gym and you do all these weights, your muscle fibers, they break down, the strings snap, and then what happens to the muscle? It grows, it comes bigger and better. Every time you break it down again, it grows back, it becomes bigger and better.
Yes.
You have to have that mentality in life. You have to, and how many times do people go, if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, how many times he actually went and did weights and break down that muscle and failed, and and came and it grew back, grew back. Every time, that's a lot of failures. But you grow, you learn from it, and you move on,
Yes.
And that you have to have that mentality in order to get, move forward in life and become who you want to be and do what you want to do, well, as we know, for us, Patrick, we nowadays we have to look back and look at our life and say, hey man, regardless to every bad thing that happened, I think I did all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of bad things happened, and within myself, I still have trials and tribulations, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't have those other things happen in order to get me here, and be able to, retrain your mind and find yourself. The thing is, you got to find yourself and find a way to be able to redirect your memory thoughts and your thought patterns and your attitude and your behavior. When this happens, I feel like this, so I gotta, redirect that thought or redirect that energy and find things that make you happy. Because ultimately, we're in a society where we just want to be happy. We just want to be happy. If we can find a job like for you wanted to be a rapper, and you're not working a day in your life, because you're doing what you love. You have passion, Where if you were there, Kaio, oh man, you'd be working your ass off, man. You know what I mean? And you'd have all these barriers up, and you just it'll. So
nothing against Kaio. I love Kaio too.
I love it. Love it.
It taught me a lot. It's just I was able to create my my passion as my career, and that was the art of it all. And that story that you just shared, the brother, from a bodybuilder, their sole purpose is to go to the gym to fail every day. That's amazing. And the outcome is you become an Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I look at Bala G, is a classic example. I look at Bala Simi Lobunde, he's into that. Like that, those type of things are just when they do the Instagram posts is very inspiring, and I'm on the health game as well to be able to get to that better better place in life, because there's no point in having wealth without health. I mean, we want to live to be able to appreciate everything that we have built, and that is a very I want to knock off that stigma around failure. I mean, and understand that failure is a part of the process.
It is. You have to tell yourself again and again, and you have to expect it. Expect failure. Expect failure. Repeat it in your mind. Let it sink in, because when it does happen, if it does happen, and when it does, it won't affect you. It won't affect you so much. You know what I mean? You expected it. When you expect something to happen, it doesn't affect you so much, you know.
Yes.
They teach it in things. They teach it in footy and everything, you know. If you'd make a mistake, hey, everyone make a mistake, move on. That's it.
Yes.
Within a second, bang, you're up to that drive and thing. That thought is gone. That error or that mistake or that failure happens. Within seconds, bang, you're back on the road again. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
because you expected it, you have to expect failure regardless. I mean, if you look at me, I had failures, but also I had physical, you know, stuff that happened to me that, you know, like physically I can't do things, you know, that I want to do anymore because, you know, I've had surgeries. Now I've had the 2 big surgeries to date was the knee reconstruction, and then I had my right shoulder rotator cuff repair from all the work and that I was doing with the heavy lifting and, you know, trying to get back to play basketball to get fit again and doing that. And I tore one of my tendons, and I had another 2 big surgeries, rotator cuff repairs. You know, I've broken my finger during footy, and, you know, rolled. You know, I've sprained ankle and stuff like that and whatever, but I still found a way to move on. You know what I mean? Even though I you know, and I became better at it, and I learned to expect and you have to own it. You have to say, hey man, you know, I've got this. For me, I'm like, hey, I've got this. I've got a, you know, thing knee or you know, shoulders not right or whatever, but I have to expect it and accept it and just move on. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the only way you're gonna move on, because if you let your mind wander and sink in, that feeling will come in. It'll stop you. It'll pause you. It'll send you backwards, you know, and you don't want to go down that track.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you, brother, for sharing that. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who put in comments there. Some great mentions. Kadal, they're trying to say like what Michael Jordan, you know him, he misses 3,000 times, but when the championship game's on, it's game on. You know, and thank you to Sister Louisa for sharing your beautiful message. I mean, this is a part of the conversation. If I go back a bit, we grew up in a very disciplined environment, and some of us turned out okay. It was good for us. Break it down to when discipline is stripped from parentals, then there is no control over any moral obligation to install good values and principles. We never questioned the boundaries we were raised in, but there are external influences outside of the family unit. How to deal with that? What can you offer in terms of sharing your own experiences? And this is what it's about. I mean, everybody has a story to share. And we can learn from each other, and it's about getting back into that conversation point. And you dropped many valuable jewels tonight, my brother. We can go on for hours.
Oh, we can go, bro. We can go.
I'm mindful of the time now, brother. I am thinking. I believe it's in a short time we're gonna have like some of the original members of the Homeboyz here. I might even put on a special and invite everybody to have a yarn. Just sit down, have a cup of tea and yarn, and we'll yarn with the. It's gonna be a crack up. I can't wait to see the boys. But
Wells, you know. Do you remember our Homeboyz jersey? One of our Homeboyz jersey was the Balto was coach. We got the white and light blue. White and light blue. I still got that.
You still got that?
It doesn't fit me anymore, but you know, it might be tight around the edge.
We'll make it fit.
But I might, stretch it a bit, and but yeah, I still got that belt. I was just having a conversation with the missus today, and she said, "Oh, Homeboyz." She goes, "That's right, you got that jersey that I wanted to throw away." And man, I was like, I looked at it, I said, "You didn't throw it away, did you?" She goes, "No, I think it's still in one of the boxes somewhere." I'm like, man, I'd be so mad if you. So, but yeah, lucky. But yeah, I still got that, Bells. So I still got that right. Light one out there, and yeah, man, I
You,
look at that.
you know, one thing that I can't remember. I've only seen a couple of. We don't have any photos of Homeboyz.
Oh, bounce.
I,
Yeah,
I can't find it. I remember I think Akela Mills got a couple, but if anybody who watches this has any
yeah,
photos, please put it up because I would love to see some of the old Homeboyz courts
yeah.
photos and Young Days photos. I don't know about the Young Days photos, but
Oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. Just blur,
I'm
blur,
happy,
blur it up, just blur.
I'm happy with just the Homeboyz squad. But
Man.
I remember playing at the basketball court all the way, and we were playing Lightning, and we play until our timer was either if it's not the sun setting, we play until mosquitoes come out.
Well,
And that's our indication to go.
Oh, we speak Balu, so one of the boys will go, Richard Otama to go up and on the Branda light balls for on the light, Branda lights next time, so we can finish this game off.
Finish this game, like
always Angelo always come out to us. Them always come out and I love it. Hey, time for the house now. Come back and ring up our parents for your blood.
Good time.
Oh man, till dark.
Till dark. Well, my brother, there's one more question that I always ask anybody who joins me here at the Black Table on Powercast, and it is, if you had to impart one value or one key piece of gem that you've carried in your life that has served you and carried you through all your, your journey, and give that back to our people who's following us and listening, what would that value, that key gem be?
Oh man, Balls, it's it's a number of things. There's not just one. There's key points, but pretty much there's a lot to talk about, as we know. But in regards to what I live by, man, hard work. Hard work beats talent any day. That's it. Hard work, and expect failure, man, and things like, yarn and talk about, have constructive conversations with people, if you got things that you want to do, you have that open discussion, that's a biggie, because as we know, for men and in general, and for all the ballers, we got too much pride, we can be strong culture, man. We can be, we can want to be the man of the house. We got too much pride, but sometimes you just have to put that pride aside, and talk openly, and not just talk to anyone. Be very conservative who you talk to, go talk to ballers that have been there, done that, and you see them shining every time you see them smile on their face, because if and obviously them, if you yarn openly about things, but yeah, just understand that, work hard, and hard work beats talent every day, and and expect failure. Expect it, man. Just tell yourself, I'm doing this, but I'm gonna fail myself, whatever, because if you don't, man, whoo, good, good on you, but expect it, because then it doesn't affect your journey too much. You know what I mean? It doesn't. Yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much the baseline. That's the base of generally what to do within yourself. As a youth, as a whatever. And if you're a parent, man, do your kids a favor. Do them a favor, and I know a lot of parents out there, blame the government, blame this, blame the system, blame the coleman, blame the neighbors, blame this, blah blah blah. Stop blaming. Feed them some positive, create environment, because you're not always going to be here to guide them through life. If you want them to live a good life, keep it positive, and and do the right things and create an environment for them so that they can, because for us, as we know, we created our environment. We had our parents and they told us things, and that we still live by, but we also developed a movement that, we kind of, that's why we're here today. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so pretty much, that's it. We could go on about that, bro. I can't really just, because saying that, if I was to say to myself, what if I was to look at my younger self and what would I say to him? I really couldn't just give him a couple of words. You know what I mean? I couldn't give him a sentence. I would really have to just, in a sense, touch base on all different aspects. You know what I mean? And be hopeful that I can guide my younger self through whatever period. You know what I mean? Because it's easy to lose yourself. Everyone does. That's why our youth that commit suicide, or all our mob that commit suicide, that's how they lose themselves. They don't speak openly about it. And we all been there. We all done that. We just have to understand that things like nowadays we got things like depression and anxiety is at the highest rate. I never knew what anxiety was, man, until I experienced it. And I was like, oh, is that what them kunzis were talking about? I was just like, the hell is this anxiety? Shut up, man. Take a cup of cement. Let's go, But man, hey, you just gotta accept it, man. Accept it and understand. And yeah, that's why that's why we're here, Patters. And I think we're gonna what you're doing, bro. Your movement, what you're doing is awesome, man. And I'd do anything to. Oh, bro, man, it's one of the best things that's happened, especially coming out of COVID, man. Especially coming out of COVID. And I like your creativity and everything that you're doing. You're not only an artist, you're not only a rapper, but hey, man, you're doing all the good things. You're thinking about your community, the future, and everything else. And hey, man, that's pretty. Unfortunately, that's rare. And
thank you, brother.
We just gotta and thank you for inviting me. And yeah.
Absolutely. We'll get you back on again for another
year. Yeah, bro. Yeah, get me back on.
And I think the mission through all this is to be able to connect with like-minded and inspirational people. A lot of them have been commenting tonight. Shout out to the Bala Monkey Mark there. Ross, all the way from down in Victoria. In Sydney. He's tuning in. He was on the last episode. So thank you very much for Kadal, Sister Louisa there, and everybody else there that's been commenting. And yeah, for you, my brother, thank you very much for coming on again. I'll definitely get you back on for more yarns. And the next one, the funny stories, the untold stories of the Homeboyz Chronicles. I'm gonna call it the Homeboyz Chronicles.
The secrets. The secrets.
But
maybe just for their mob there, just for any questions or anything like that, that'll be good for you guys to speak openly and any questions they want to ask during your live if they anything they want to ask, they throw it out there.
Absolutely. I think if they drop still more questions, private message me or DM me if you have any questions from all the last episodes, and I'll talk about it in the next episode. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion, brother.
Brother.
All right, my brother. I will close it off here for tonight. Biggest if you stay on the line, I have a yarn with you after, but I will close this segment here with everybody. Well, guys, there you have the brother Casey, Kaio, Levi, who came on and sharing his life journey. He's an inspirational brother, someone that I catch up with when we do get the time. And every time I sit down and have a yarn with the brother, it's always enriching. I hope you got some value from this conversation. And thank you once again for everybody who's been commenting. Please follow, like, go subscribe on the YouTube. And we want to build this community of like-minded collectives, inspirational and empowering people. Also, with the launch of Patreon, for those who don't know that I'm doing all these live streaming events, and it's very, very minimal amount to be able to connect to it. You get high quality production, culture, and entertainment. And during this time, we want to be able to put more artists back to work, and also create more platforms like these where we're able to share. Thank you once again for tuning in, and respect to my brother Underdweller. Yeah, you just posted a comment there. Thank you, brother, for tuning in. You've been a great support from day one. We're gonna get you back on when we can find the time to co-host one of these events, brother. And I just want to wish everybody a safe weekend and a great journey moving forward. I see you here the next time on the same place, 7:30 every Fridays. Man, just watch, and if you like, follow the Facebook page. You'll hear and see everything that we're promoting out there. You know how we do it. As I close off here on Powercast, Power Nation's platform, how we always do it, Powercast. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and stay connected. Eso.